Now, here's Ed Bernstein.
Hi, well, if you don't think life is beautiful, you certainly will after October 24th to 26th. And with me is Rehan Choudhry, who is the founder of, well, what is the terminology? Is this an event? Life is Beautiful Festival?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? It's a festival?
Yeah, I mean, it's a festival, but in a strange way, it's also a social impact project. For us, we create a 3-day music, food, art, and learning festival that takes place in downtown Las Vegas, over 100,000 attendees over the 3 days. But then in the off season, when we're not actually producing the festival, our focus is on communicating the message that life is beautiful to people all around the world. So the idea is if we can instill this sense of positivity and opportunity and hope in life, the world will be a little bit of a better place and people will be a little more we'll see the light at the end of the tunnel in a lot of challenging situations.
Yeah. Now, I wish the audience could see the list of performers and entertainers that we have. I mean, it goes on for 2 pages, many of which are very well known musical groups, chefs,
Absolutely.
performers, entertainers, poets, writers, speakers.
It's all across the board.
How did you get this idea? Where did it originate? I mean, this is not just, this is Woodstock plus, plus, plus.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going to festivals since the mid-90s. And one of the things that I've seen over the last 20 some odd years is festivals have evolved. A lot of the marketing terminology started to change, in which music festivals weren't enough by themselves. They had to be music and food festivals and music and art festivals. And what I started seeing as I was attending more of these is a music and art festival was never focusing on art enthusiasts. They were just focused on music enthusiasts and showing some art to make it feel a little more multidimensional or give it a little more depth. What I wanted to see, I wanted to experiment with, what would happen if you actually brought art enthusiasts out? Like art enthusiasts who go to Art Basel, and you brought food enthusiasts out.
Art Basel is the big show in Miami with artists.
And you take fans of culinary who go to South Beach Wine and Food or Pebble Beach or Aspen Food and Wine, and you bring in fans of TED or Summit, the learning programs, with fans of music and put them all together at one festival at one time. This organic learning opportunity and this almost cultural collision weekend could really make a difference in people's lives and make a difference in the way people perceive arts and entertainments and lifestyle events. So that was the idea. It was largely a social experiment to see what was going to happen if you put all these people together. Were they going to blend together? Were they going to have more fun together? Were there going to be more opportunities together?
But is it all within the same age demographic, basically?
It's a pretty wide range. So typically, I mean, music festivals, as we all know, typically range 14-year-old to 24-year-old. You have some outliers on both sides. But for us, the music side definitely targets that kind of millennial generation. For culinary, though, we end up seeing ages 35 to 45 or even upwards of 50 plus. Because there are a lot of traditional food and wine events that are going on at the festival. There are tastings, there are culinary demonstrations, there are lessons. The depth in learning just off of the culinary is pretty impressive. And then you've got a psychographic kind of situation where people who are enthusiasts of art or learning, it spans all generations and all ages, are all able to attend and experience something just unique, especially given the West Coast mix of events that are out there.
So in the mix of performers, I mean, you have to personally choose and approve each one. I mean, because and the mix has to be carefully planned, I would think.
It really does. I mean, what we try to do is create a mix of talent across all 4 categories that both attract a wide mainstream audience attention. So those are typically your headliners that get the most awareness, but then a good chunk of artists that are aspiring next generation talent that you can experience for the very first time at this event, right? What we want is 5 years from now for people to look back at their 2013 and 2014 Life is Beautiful festival experience and be able to say, I saw that band when. Right?
I was in Woodstock, man. That's you want that history, right?
Absolutely.
Now, your background was in the casino, hotel, entertainment world?
It was. I actually started right after college. I started working for the Department of Homeland Security.
Because that's very entertaining.
I was an IT consultant, and I always had a passion for music and entertainment, but I never saw it as a career. I came from a family of now 3 physicians, my parents and my sister, and formal education and formal career approach was always the way you go. 2 years into working for the government, it was a great experience, it was a fulfilling experience, but I wasn't happy doing it. Went to grad school, went to work for the casinos, got recruited by the casinos, and started doing marketing development, a lot of it in the event space.
But how did that happen? I mean, you're growing up, obviously with an interest in technology and computers,
Yep.
right? And then how did you switch into the entertainment side? What was the connection of that?
You know what's interesting? So like, what I liked about computers and information systems was the way different programs and different systems work together, which is not that different from the way events work, right? So some people see events as a sea of people paying attention to one headliner as they're performing or one chef as they're performing. But the reality is you've got an entire subculture of different social groups and different generations coming together for that experience at one point. And the systems kind of work really similarly to the way computer programs work. It's a strange...
It's a synergy between them.
It really is. And what you end up having is the magic is not in, I mean, it's obviously in the talent because it's those other performers, but the magic and the uniqueness of an event are in the crowd and how they interact together and those kind of social experiences. The stories that people walk away from a decade later, 2 decades later, whatever it is, after Woodstock, after Life is Beautiful, after any other festival, is about the interactions they had with people, not necessarily all the shows that they saw, right? It's a moment in time, really important piece of the way we all grow up.
Describing it doesn't do it justice. We have some video I'd like to show so we can let the viewers see what we're talking about, then we'll come back and talk some more.
Great.
Be right back.
I guess in one sense, a music festival is a gathering of a lot of strangers, but I must say that music, by the end of the night, always makes me feel like I know everybody who I shared that experience with, and there's nothing else in the world that can do that like music, so thank you for being a part of this wonderful festival in its very first year! I feel like it marks the beginning of a brand new Las Vegas, and I'm excited to be a part of it. Isn't life beautiful? Las Vegas, how we feeling today? Louder, louder Las Vegas, we want to hear you.
We are called the Killers, and we're brought to you by way of fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada.
Turn on your television for a chance of fame. The newsman failed to mention that she had a name. Sweet, 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 sweet.
Now, that really just showed basically the music. I mean, there's a whole other dimension that we were talking about earlier with the writers, the poets, the chefs, et cetera. And that was last year in Las Vegas, right?
It was.
That was your
First
beginning,
year.
your first year. And you were telling me during the break that you walked into the mayor's office, a known entity.
Yeah.
You know, here's a guy with an idea, and you were surprised how open the city was to helping you.
Yeah, I mean, I worked for large corporate companies for a long time and worked with city organizations out east that were not willing to adopt anything new. Right? The risk associated with the new venture, regardless of the size, just wasn't anything that was palpable, I guess. So walking into the mayor's office here was, it was insane, right? It didn't seem like there was a chance in the world that she was going to say yes to it, let alone actually listen, because I was an unknown. I was new to the city. I'd only been here a couple years. And 45 minutes into the meeting, she looked at me and goes, "What do you need?" I mean, that was literally it. And within a year, she put her entire staff at our disposal, and without the city's support, it wouldn't have happened. But that story is replicated across our entire year of launching this thing, our entire first year. It's walking into every person's door in this office and have people say, "Look, if you can pull this off, we're in."
Who was the biggest act you got last year?
Bringing the Killers back home was tremendous.
Right.
They hadn't played in their home market for years, and then Imagine Dragons just a few years ago were playing playing O'Shea's, I think. They were playing, playing a small casino on the Strip as a cover band, and they came back, and the moment that they played the festival, they were the biggest band in the world. So to see them play in their hometown on that stage for the very first time was tremendous.
Now this year, you have the event starting October 24th through the 26th. And I know you're sold out, right?
We're getting there.
So it's not even, we don't even have to really even promote this thing. It's self-promoting. But some of the people you have, Kanye West.
Yep.
Now, how do you get Kanye West to come? I mean,
we got very, very lucky with Kanye. So the guy's incredibly selective of what he performs, and he's such an incredible entertainer and musician. Last year at the festival, we had a Saturday and Sunday festival. Friday, he was playing MGM Garden Arena, and he came downtown to check out what we were building. So Tony Shea, myself, and a few other of my partners, we gave him a tour of the entire festival grounds. So then, as soon as he saw the reviews of the festival and saw how well it did, the conversation was actually really easy after the fact. If worlds hadn't collided at that moment last year, I don't know if we would have gotten him.
and then when you have a guy like Kanye West performing this year, it makes next year a little bit easier to attract entertainers.
It makes it easier, but it also makes it more challenging, because every year you want to continue to raise the bar, not just above the previous year, but above all other events and experiences that are happening that year. It takes a lot of creativity and a lot of luck and a great team to be able to constantly beat what you accomplished the year before.
Now, I have a question for you. As a father of essentially 6 teenage year girls that live for this kind of stuff. You know, it's Coachella, Electric Daisy, Carnival, and Life is Beautiful. What is the difference between those 3 events?
From a size and impact perspective, very little. Right, so just in the sense that these are now massive cultural events that, for each of the audiences that they're targeting, make a huge impact both in the industries we operate in, but then also in the lives of the people, the attendees that are there. But when you actually get into deciding which festival you're going to go to, then you really start seeing the differences between them. So,
there are nuances between them, right?
Well, so Coachella's always been LA's fashion-centric music festival, right? It's very much the spring break of LA, and it's an international scene for music, largely live performances. EDC is the EDM, electronic music capital of the world. It doesn't get bigger experientially and from just a large-scale show perspective than what Pasquale Rotello produces there every year. Life is Beautiful is the urban city arts lifestyle festival, right? We're trying to touch upon all of the elements that you are going to interact with on your day-to-day life, whether it's listening to great music on your way to work or sitting in a social kind of conversation around politics or next generation, dating or the way technology is advancing the way we communicate together in the business world, or if it's sitting at the dinner table with your family and friends. We want to replicate all of those experiences on a larger level. So when you walk into our festival, it feels like home. Right? It feels like things that you're used to doing day to day, but just scaled up to a level that you aren't necessarily going to experience in your normal year. Right? So you're still having dinner with your family and your friends, but you're doing it with Jose Andres as he's carving off of an ox that's been roasted for 12 hours before that. That's what we're trying to be.
And when you're looking at that demographic that you talked about earlier, 14 to 24, I mean, do they know who he is? Who some of these chefs are? But so maybe their first exposure to them.
Well, and the point is that they don't, right? And that's the exciting part about it. Last year, after the festival, I got a letter, handwritten letter from a 14-year-old girl who lived in Summerlin. And what she had told, her father delivered the letter and said that when he dropped it off, so he goes, in the entire time I've known my daughter, she's never written anything like this. She's never spoken like this. And what she wrote was, I came for the music. Here are the bands that I came to see, and thank you for bringing them. But I was in line for a slider, and I was hungry, and I saw people taking photos with the guy behind the booth. I walked up, I met Hubert Keller, right? Restaurateur, celebrity chef, owner of Floor, and she got to take a photo with him, interact with him, and now she's writing in a letter to us that she wanted to explore culinary as a career.
Right.
And her father's like, she's never used the word culinary in her life. So the idea is that we're exposing an entirely new generation to other lifestyle categories and opening their eyes to what's possible from a career perspective and from just a personal pride perspective, right? We're creating a social currency around all of the different talent or experiential elements that people can absorb and be able to talk about later. And that doesn't just apply to 14-year-olds, right? I've got 45-year-olds that attended the event who didn't know who Haim was or who didn't know who Portugal the Man was. They came for the culinary and for the learning, and all of a sudden they're sitting there rocking out next to their kids, enjoying music that they're then carrying with them throughout the year.
Yeah, you'd be impressed that I know who Haim is. But why don't you mention some of the people? I mean, it's such a huge list. Why don't you mention some of the landmark artists and famous people that are going to be there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Foo Fighters haven't played Las Vegas in upwards of 9 years, and that was probably one of the hardest artists to get. Dave Grohl is founding drummer of Nirvana, one of the most influential people in rock music today, only picks his shows based on the authenticity of the music and the authenticity of the event. So we really had to explain to him what we were doing for downtown Vegas and what we were doing for the redevelopment of the city. Getting him on board was a huge deal. Outkast doing one of their last shows on their reunion tour 20 years after their first album came out is tremendous. The Head and the Heart is my personal favorite. It's got this folky, almost southern rock vibe that's just really soulful and really tremendous. And in that category, whether it's The Head and the Heart or Trampled by Turtles or Casey Musgraves, those are bands that don't come through Vegas very often. Right? Vegas is all about either really small artists in small venues downtown or bands that are going to sell out 4,000 to 14,000 tickets in the Joint or Madison Square Garden Arena. There's an entire middle category of talent that we're bringing that normally don't come here, which is really exciting for us.
And how do you go about choosing some of the TED type of people, the motivational speakers, the poets?
So we've got a tremendous speaking curator. Her name's Lisa Shufro. She's downtown. She used to be the curator for TED Med, and I was fortunate that Tony Shea, my partner, brought her in to work on downtown project efforts. And she loved our festival and wanted to be a part of it. So she put together an incredible lineup based on our objectives, right? What we wanted to do was create learning experiences that didn't feel like learning. It didn't feel like a classroom session. It felt like storytelling, but highly impactful storytelling that allows you to draw the same experiences that you can get off seeing a headliner on a stage. So we take our learning lineup as seriously as we do music or culinary. I mean, we've got headliners like Isaiah Austin, the gentleman who was drafted the NBA after finding out they had a debilitating disease that wouldn't allow him to play, or having Ricky Lake come in and speak years after her talk show was on the air. And then we're announcing today that that Pussy Riot, the Russian female punk group that was imprisoned for 2 years and is now suing Russia and Putin for human rights violations, are coming in to speak. This is one of their, I think, their fifth U.S. appearance.
Are they still living in Russia? Or?
They are. Yeah. They're on a tour right now. They got amnesty in the U.S. and they're going to be here and they're going to speak at the festival, which is a tremendous honor.
They were politically very vocal, and Putin imprisoned them for.
Imprisoned them for hooliganism, is what he called it, and put him in jail for 2 years. It's unbelievable, the story that these girls.
But bolstered their careers.
Incredibly. I mean, now, they went from an indie punk group in Russia to becoming the face of human rights globally today. I mean, they're fighting for it as much as anyone else is. It's really tremendous.
So when you look forward about 3, 4, 5 years down the road, who do you see performing that you haven't gotten yet?
So the funny thing is, some of the bands,
like a Bono guy, seems to me like he'd be perfect for this.
At a lower level, some of the bands that we would have perform 5 years from now probably aren't even in bands today. Right? A lot of these artists are just getting their start. So it's exciting to know that the opportunity for booking is kind of pretty open. At a headliner level, there's some ones. I mean, there's some wishes that I have out there.
Who's on your top of your wish list?
Prince, David Bowie, the Talking Heads reunion, if that were to ever happen. I love the idea that Genesis is getting back together next year. There's a lot of interesting what the industry calls heritage acts, but they're really compelling, great performers that I would love to be able to pull in for Life is Beautiful and be able to show the strength of this festival.
Right. How about just a speaker? You ever venture into the political round? I mean, would you ever have a Bill Clinton or somebody like that speak?
I mean, absolutely. I think what we're trying to create is customized storytelling approaches to speaking, to public speaking. So I would love to have a Bill Clinton. I would love to have a Hillary Clinton. I'd love to have anyone in the political realm. But the idea is they'd have to rethink the way that they communicate. Right? What we don't want is the same talk that's being given at every political event throughout the year. We want somebody really bearing their soul on that stage. If Bill Clinton's willing to do that, I would do that in a heartbeat. It would be an honor. Yeah,
it would really be interesting. Unbelievable. I mean, and this is, okay, let's talk about geographically. Okay, you're downtown, but you got, what, 60,000 people, is that what you said?
We have over 100,000 people this year over 3 days.
100,000 people. Okay. Where's 100,000 people fit downtown?
So this is probably the most innovative part of the festival, is we were able to fence off 15 city blocks of downtown. The idea was take the exclusivity and strangely the intimacy of a festival like Coachella that's fenced off and only allows a certain audience of people who buy wristbanded tickets in, with a South by Southwest, which takes place in Austin's historic kind of city environment. If you're able to combine those two, you got a revolutionary festival ground where it happens in your city, a city that's in the middle of massive redevelopment efforts. It's going to change over time every year that you come in, but then it is an exclusive event. It's only accessible by people with wristbands, and you can only attend the event that way. But what better way to celebrate Las Vegas and to celebrate the future of our city than doing the festival in the middle of the city as opposed to an hour outside?
Amazing. And where are the boundaries of downtown that you're using?
Fremont Street is the westernmost boundary, and 10th is the easternmost. And then we go as far up as Mesquite by the highway and as far as south as Carson.
And how much are the tickets?
Tickets are $300, roughly $300.
Now, I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, but some of the other festivals we talked about are even more.
We have more talent over the 3 days and more experiences over the 3 days for a cheaper ticket price than any of the other big festivals that you mentioned. The goal here is, the trend we're seeing in the industry is festivals are becoming more and more expensive and harder for fans to get into. They're becoming industry events, or they're becoming influencer events. The reality is you want those die-hard fans who want to see their favorite band and support their favorite band. That's what we're trying to create. We're trying to create a festival and experience that's more accessible than anything else that's out there.
So what is your day like during the festival?
What's my day like during the festival?
Yeah, I mean, you're running from venue to venue?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, from the second we opened doors to the second that our last headliner went on, it was a blur. It was meaning, it's like going to your wedding amplified a million times.
You're a host to everybody.
Everyone you've ever met in your life is there. Everyone's enthusiastic about being there. There's just so much energy. You kind of get lost in it. I spent a lot of time just trying to see little pieces of everything. The one moment that I remember more than anything is hearing the Killers go into those first notes of Mr. Brightside. House lights on, stage lit up, and seeing them perform at the close. That was my moment. That was the one.
And what about security and potential? I mean, some of these big festivals do have some issues, some problems, some drug use.
Yeah, I mean, it's a risk for any festival. When you're bringing 100,000 people or more into one environment at one time, it's hard to control behaviors. So what we try to do is create as safe of an environment as we can, both by the way we handle everything security-wise, but then also the vibe that we have for our festival. So I'm knock on wood, if you compare festivals across the board, we had the least amount of injuries or any sort of substance-related issues. And I think it was largely because of the positivity around the event. I mean, it's hard to go put yourself in a dangerous situation at a festival called Life is Beautiful. But then also the maturity of the audience, given the talent mix, really created a good kind of more natural vibe than you see at a lot of these other events, and a safer one.
Do you have trouble with the trademarking a name? Wasn't there a movie, Life is Beautiful?
Yeah. There was the movie, and they trademarked around the film. You know, it's funny, we shockingly didn't. It's one of the most recognizable statements that are out there for a million different reasons, not the least of which people have been hashtagging it on Twitter for years. So there's a little bit of a marketing strategy that has to go into creating ownership over that. But what I like about it is that there really is no ownership over it, right? It's a statement that belongs to everyone, and it's not a brand. It's a phrase. It's
you can get hats and
something
compete
more
with
powerful.
Life is Good.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's been a delight meeting you, Rehan.
Absolutely.
October 24th to 26th on Fremont Street. I guess you can still find tickets somewhere. They're hard to find, I know that.
Yeah, there's.
And you can buy them for a day and not have to buy the whole 3 days,
You
right?
can. All of our ticket options are available at lifeisbeautiful.com. They are going quickly, but we have 3 days and single days.
Thank you. Life is Beautiful.